Come on. Not
Hey, you're all
yours.
set.
Okay, so I have this big screen. Okay, I'm just gonna put it over there for now. Okay, so we'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. This is going to be the meeting for the Executive Director Search Committee meeting, Wednesday, December the 9th, 2020, 6 p.m. I'm Sylvia England, and I am presiding over the meeting. So with that, let's do a roll call. So Larry,
Here.
Brian,
Here.
Rob,
Here.
Martha,
Here.
perfect. Tatiana,
Here.
Jean, Josue,
Here.
and Chitara. Okay, so I have Jean and Chitara being absent, and we do have a quorum, so we can go ahead with our committee meeting. So the agenda, I need a motion to approve the agenda for the Waukegan Public Library Board of Trustees Executive Director Search Committee meeting.
I move to accept the agenda for tonight's meeting of the executive search for the Waukegan Public Library meeting tonight.
Thank you.
Mhm.
The second?
I'll second.
Okay. Okay. So all in favor, Larry,
Aye.
Brian,
Aye.
Rob,
Aye.
Martha,
Aye.
Tatiana,
Aye.
Josue,
Aye.
and myself as an aye. So the motion has been carried or passed, and we will move on. And the first thing is the RFP for the Executive Director Search discussion. So if everybody will just pull out that RFP and let's just go through it real quick. Okay, so the first thing we want to consider is when do we want to do by, and that's on the front cover. So just keep that in mind as we go through. Okay, so you know what, Douglas, being that you went through and put it together, do you mind going through and discussing it for us?
Sure thing. I'm going to start with the assumption that everybody's read this. That may be a faulty premise, and I do not begrudge you for if you haven't. The way that I tried to approach this was Susan gave me a very good draft of a baseline sort of RFP document for an executive search. But knowing that, and having heard from some of you in the past, the way that the last consultant had handled your RFP, or I'm sorry, not the RFP, but the actual search, being very involved with staff, I wanted to try to see how I could write a pretty generic RFP that would allow you to get proposals back from these companies that would allow for the sort of maximum range of services that could be, you know, sort of available to you. So if you specifically look at section 4, I tried to sort of outline what I see as the key steps. And this is on pages, I want to say 3 and 4, bottom of page 3 and the top of page 4. You know, and that's really, I think, the biggest sort of area that I want your feedback on. Are these in fact the sorts of services that you want to get from that consultant? How involved do you want them in each of these processes? And, you know, sort of what kind of deference do you want to give to them on some of these, and how much of it do you want to be members of the board versus staff versus, you know, some sort of like larger search committee that's beyond the executive board. So I tried to sort of give you the sort of like really big questions to ask yourselves. Section, sort of backing up, section 3 is much more of just the legalese, talking about the types of insurance that we need to have in place, the, you know, usual if you make a proposal, it has to be valid for a period of time. Section 5 looks to what I see as being the major components of a proposal. This is again an area where, sort of what do you want to see? When I talked to Sylvia about this earlier, I laid out to her that, to me, these might be the things that I would want to see in a proposal, and when I hear from boards, generally, these are the kinds of things that they want to see. But what's going to actually influence your decision-making in, deciding which proposal is best for the library, which one's best are going to provide you the best candidates. So the more that you can give me feedback, especially on those sections 4 and 5, that's really where I think, you should focus your discussion tonight. Sylvia, you're muted.
May I ask a question?
Sure
Go
thing.
ahead.
Oh, great. So my question is, right now, because of COVID and everything that's going on, but the other thing too is that I would ask other libraries if they use a consultants to find their executive directors, because I don't know what the financial situation of the city of Waukegan is going to be in the future, and we need to think about being saving money if we can in this period of time when we really don't know what awaits us in the future.
I mean, I don't know if I can answer that question for you, but I guess I would answer with a couple of things to just keep in mind when you're deciding how you want to proceed with this.
Right.
The first is, there's always cost associated with doing one of these searches, whether it's staff time. You have a very limited staff right now that probably can't do their own search. You've gone through, I don't know that I want to call it a failed search, but something close to a failed search in the last few years, resulting in the termination of Selena's contract earlier this year. And the way that I approached this was to try to narrow this to the sort of like key things that I think need to be in a proposal, or that I think that I've heard you say you want to be in a proposal, but also one that's vague enough that it allows them to give you sort of an a la carte menu of additional services that they might be able to provide to you, and give you cost associated with that. So those would be sort of the three things that I would keep in mind.
I'd also like to just say that Martha, I understand where you're coming from, and I had a large concern about this very thing, but in the end, I feel pretty strongly that a firm does need to handle this, because if anything, because of COVID also, it makes it more difficult for us to do that job, as well as I just feel like there's some things that are just worth the money, because it could save a lot of hassle later on. So where I'm coming from with it is, and I'm always the one that says no based on money, is that I feel strongly that it will save us up front, that this is a worthwhile investment, especially given the state of our board currently and just the history of our board and the history of our library. So for me, it is a wise investment at this point. That's
so
just my
I would ask that because I would talk a lot to Mr. Lee, and I saw a lot of the things that he did and the changes and how we get recognition and everything. I would want to go back to whoever found him, okay, or however he was, he was recruited, and repeat it, because what he did for the library and the time he was there, okay, was a lot. Okay. So if they were, whoever it was that we used to find Mr. Lee, we should maybe look at whoever they are. Okay. And, and say, hey, you know what, this is what, what we had and everything. We want to go back to those times again. Okay. So what, go back and see what was asked. And, and the other thing too is right now with COVID, I would almost say, being more creative with your employees. What would you have them work on? Because you don't know how long this is going to last. What would you have your employees do during this time period where they're still getting paid, but we need to be more proactive as far as using them in this downtime. So that's what I would like to see.
Two things that I would also like to add to what I said previously. One thing is that I did look at other libraries, and especially Illinois-based libraries, to see how they had done their searches and what RFPs they had put out there. This is consistent with what I found, and I always like to sort of see what's out there and distill it down to the elements that I think are best from a couple of different ones, and put that into my own formula, or I guess formula is the right word for an RFP. The other thing that I would just mention is, I don't know who did Richard Lee's search. I don't know how that process worked, but I can remind you that that was close to 20 years ago. So there may not be good records, and the company that did that might be very different now than it was then. It may be a different, they may no longer exist for all I know. I just simply, I don't know the answer to that.
Martha, I think that, I think perhaps you could make a list or write down some of these things that you're thinking were the positives that you'd like to see, rather than have it be necessarily just about Mr. Lee. But we at one point discussed making a list of qualities that we would want to see in somebody. So I think that would be a very beneficial thing for the board. And when we left last meeting, we talked about finding some places to submit this to, right, Sylvia?
Right.
So I found a couple people, so when we're ready to talk about that, I did a couple places, so.
Could I say something?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think for those that aren't comfortable hiring a firm, I think we need to remember that we're just putting out a request for proposal. So whatever we get from there, we can decide at that point if it's too expensive, if it's necessary. But then again, we're not professionals in hiring, and so I think that we do need a firm to help us through this process.
That's true.
Okay, just going back to the proposal. Douglas, when you in number 3, general instructions and conditions, and I'm looking at number D, what does that mean?
So what that means is that if they make you an offer, if they submit a proposal in response to the RFP, they have to hold that open for 90 days. Like, they can't then go back on the pricing after the fact and try to raise it based on a conversation they've had with us during the process. They have to hold to this agreement. It's basically a guarantee that you will have an offer open for that 90-day window. You can decide how you want to act in that period.
Okay, and then in on G, it says they shall commit sufficient resources to complete the project. What does that mean?
Again, this is sort of just general legal language. What this one means is that they need to make sure that they have the appropriate amount of staffing and resources available to actually conduct this search and to meet the deadlines and timelines that they give us. You don't want a firm to come in and say, oh yeah, I can, get this done in the next 6 months, and then 6 months later they say, yeah, it's going to be another 18 months before we can even, give you a stack of resumes. You want to have some reason that, you want to have something in the contract documents that say, we expect you to give us a timeline, we expect you to stick to it, and if you don't, there's going to be penalties associated with that.
Okay, that's good.
I find this extremely thorough. So I really appreciate the length of the document and how much it covers personally. So I feel like I think it's a really solid RFP. Thank you.
I have another. Yes, thank you. Douglas, yes, this is Susan and Douglas, this is very well written. If you go back to H for me, does this mean that they will have to have insurance in order to do this project?
It does. So E&O insurance is a little bit different from ordinary insurance in that it kind of says that, if they miss something, they're providing us a professional service. And if they miss something and it's something that they should have caught, that they've got insurance that would cover us for anything that results from that. So say you hired an executive director who had a felony murder in their background, right? And,
Mhm.
they didn't disclose it in the application process. You contracted out with this company that promised to do a full background check and give you the results of that check. Turns out the guy's got a, felony murder and, does something in our library that reflects poorly on the institution, or even worse, opens us to some sort of liability that they would have insurance that would cover us for that omission.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, those are my questions. So does everybody see the RFP as something that we could send out?
Yes.
I see a problem though occurring,
Go
even
ahead.
if you have an RFP, because I mean, Sylvia, that I was in a lot of different departments,
Mhm.
when I was in the school. And so I always investigated the department or checked on what was the history of the supervisor, or what was the history of that department, if they had any problems or whatever. And so what I can see transpiring is that someone who comes in and starts talking to this agency is, if they're smart, they're going to do some background history, and then they're going to be like, I don't know. So that's the only problem I can see, is that we may not have our ducks in a row, and that is going to really affect, I think, our search of our what candidates apply.
I think that that's going to happen no matter what, Martha. I mean, I think anyone who takes the position or applies here is going to, it's a Google search away, unfortunately. And fortunately, because it also will promote a discussion. There's nothing hidden or anything like that. So I think it's going to be a challenge in general, not necessarily a firm being an issue with that.
Well, I think that maybe we should look at making sure that the staff or persons are there to support whoever comes in, because if they tell me, we're offering you this job, okay, I want to know about, how many people I have, and we're like, oh no, well, you know what, they're not really there, so this is what you're gonna have to, you know what I mean? As far as staff to support the person coming in. That's what I would wonder about. Maybe trying to do a little more house cleaning, maybe before we put it out, to make sure that they can see that there's growth, and we're trying to make an improvement, and we're trying to straighten out a lot of stuff before this person comes in. That's what I can see.
My concern is, I don't know if that's our role as a board to do something like that.
It's not your role, but I just think that that the library or whoever, I mean, we kind of oversee, don't we, kind of? So we could do a suggestion maybe regarding this. Could we do that?
Seconding Brian, I don't really feel like that's the board's place. If John acting as interim director felt that there was more house cleaning to be done, or I think these are things that fall on the executive director. And I think if there was a problem, then it would be John's place to come and seek our advice.
Okay.
But I think that is out of our hands, A, and B, I think we can't hold up this process any longer until we see certain improvements internally I think the process needs to go forward. It should have started prior to COVID probably. So I think this is a very time sensitive issue. And again, as I think Josue mentioned, we're just sending this out and getting feedback on it. No major decisions are being made in the next immediate future here.
Okay.
I agree.
Right.
We need to send this out, start getting proposals, and then we can talk. We can discuss who to hire for the process that we're going to hire. But discussing any potential applicants and their flaws, I think, is still premature.
Okay.
Right. So basically what we're doing tonight is we're looking over the RFP so that we can send it out. And the purpose is to see if there's, or to find out if there's anything that we should be asking in this RFP that's not here. Or if there's something that's here that we don't agree with, then we should talk it through and take it out, or figure out why, it should stay. And I know Tatiana has mentioned it, and I mentioned the fact that it looks like a good RFP. I know Susan probably would know too, and she started the process. So I'm sure, Susan, you probably added in some things that you saw the last time that could have been tweaked a little.
Sylvia, what I did is I did a draft of what a normal RFP looks like, and then Douglas added the verbiage that he wanted to see and the wording, so everything would be in line, like his information about the insurance requirements and that type of thing. I could not find anywhere in the library any contract that was signed with the previous search firm.
Wow.
I looked through every document or anything on the drives that I could think of, and I found nothing.
Could we reach out to the previous firm?
I suppose we could, if they would like to supply us with that. But that was a contract. I don't think an RFP was ever written before, previously.
You're right. You know what? I really don't remember an RFP. I think we just chose them and we went forward without this process. We didn't do this.
No, I think they were selected because of the reputation that they had specifically in the library world, and I think it was not something that was widely explored, should we say?
Right. We chose them on their reputation.
Susan, thank you very much. Thank you.
And basically, this RFP will give you an opportunity to more or less interview other firms out there that are available to do these type of executive searches.
Right. Sounds good. Okay, so does anybody see anything else that they would like to see in this RFP?
I mean, Sylvia, if I may, I just would say, the more that you guys can give me feedback in the next couple of days, maybe by the end of the week, especially on the scope of services, is this in fact, what you envision this process to look like? But then also what do you actually want to see in these proposals? I mean, what do you actually want them to tell you about either their past work, in terms of like references, in terms of what the work product looks like? This is the time to ask those questions of these firms. So the more that we can put into this document or take out of this document to address those concerns really is going to give you a much better set of firms to select from.
Thank you, Douglas. So as a board, is everybody in agreement that we should move forward with the RFP?
Yes.
Yes, big time. And if I just may answer Douglas's question from just now, this is so much more than I even would have known to include or say. So it is a lot of information. The only question I would have is if it's too much information. I say no, but if anyone else feels it's too lengthy.
I think for firms that do this type of work on a regular basis, this is the kind of document that they expect to see, and that there's nothing in here that I think is going to be prohibitive to them. For maybe a local consultant who's a mom and pop shop, who doesn't interact with a lot of governmental units, this might be a little bit much. But
Okay, well, thank you. I'm very impressed. Susan and Douglas, very, very nice.
Okay, well then, you know what, I was seeing if I could pull my files from what did we do, the 22 years ago? And I might be able to. Okay, so with that, so let me just do a real quick roll call. Let's see if everybody's in agreement. Larry, going forward with the RFP?
Yes, yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Martha,
Yes.
Tatiana,
Yes.
Josue, Josue,
What happened?
I don't, he's still on. Okay, and I'm saying yes too. So that is the majority. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That is the majority of us saying yes, we should go forward. And Josue, if you're still there, you can at any point in time give us your feedback.
Sorry, yeah, it wasn't working.
Okay.
Did we take a vote? I got cut off.
What I asked was if everybody was in agreement with going forward with this RFP.
Yes, I'm in agreement.
Okay,
Send it
great.
out.
Okay, so now at this point, sounds like Tatiana did a little search.
I came up with three firms. One is the one we used before, John's firm. I did miss the first meeting, so I'm sorry if everybody said that was a poor experience. I'm not sure, but he did come up on my search. I also came up with Library Strategies, a group called Library Strategies that hires consultants, and it was unclear on their website if they conduct these searches or if they match you to consultants or firms that do that. So I need a little more research on that one. And then I did like a smaller firm called Bradbury Miller, and they're based out of Ohio, but they actually work nationally. And Bradbury gave me a good feeling. So,
Okay.
So those are the three that I came up with.
Good. So Douglas, am I still in? Oh, okay, Douglas. So then can you go ahead and do the final draft on this? And then Susan, if I'm not overstepping, can you start sending them out to some different firms?
Do you want to have any further research or discussion into some other firms before we start the process? So we start it with everyone at the same, starting point date of sending them out. And also, Sylvia, that is something that you should run by John.
I will.
And then, I think we can go through there. But I think we need to have an agreed upon list of who to send this to, so that we're not sending them out piecemeal. Everyone should be getting them in the same time frame. At least that's how I've always approached them. Unless, Doug, you feel differently?
I would tend to agree with you. I do think that, in addition to just sending this to a few firms that we've identified, ensuring that we post this on the library's website is important, ensuring that we post it on the city's website. If we can post it under their on their bid and RFP page, that would probably be helpful. I'm pretty sure Rails has a similar classified section where this could be posted. The more that we can do to make sure that this is out on those sorts of websites is going to be very helpful, I think, to getting responses. The other question that I think needs to be answered before we put this out is, how long do we want this to actually be out? State law requires that it be out for at least 10 days. Once it is posted on the library's website. But beyond that, it's up to you. Do you want to give people a month to respond, understanding that we're in the middle of the holiday season? Do we want to, go to 2 weeks? Do we want to go to 6 weeks? Where in that do you want to fall?
I would say because of the holidays and everything else that's going on, that 30 days would be a good time period to have it out there. Anyone else?
Hi. I like 6 weeks. It just sounds a little more reasonable because really about now the holiday freeze kind of starts to happen where everything is just sort of frozen for the next 2 or 3 weeks. And so come January 1st, we would still have about a month beyond this current couple of weeks, whatever, for the holidays. So I think 6 weeks is very generous and more than enough, but I would think 6 weeks would be a better option.
I prefer 6 weeks as well.
And recall that we can also extend it if we're not getting responses. We certainly have that ability.
We also
So
might
would
not
that
get.
would that be February 1st?
I was looking at January 22nd, but I may have done my math wrong.
We also have to
December
understand.
9th. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, this is Susan. We also have to understand that there's still work to be done to finalize the RFP.
Right.
And
Right.
so we probably aren't even looking at putting it out there until after Christmas, depending on what everybody's holiday schedules are looking like.
I think it wouldn't be unreasonable that I could have a final draft to you by the end of the week or Monday at the latest.
And
So
I would not be opposed to meeting with someone and coming up with a list. I mean, definitely, Tatiana, if you're interested, you could be a part of the group that puts together the list. The only thing is I have to caution that anything past 2, we have to have a committee meeting and it has to be posted, etc. So
Is it
we could come up with
possible- Sorry, go ahead.
we could come up with a list and then get that list out by the time the final draft is ready. I just don't want to push it. I don't want to go through the holidays and all of this is still sitting on the table.
I agree. I think if we can have it out prior to when everyone is prior to the week holiday weeks. I mean, I don't know, I go back and forth, but yeah, I think it needs to get out sooner rather than later. I'm happy to meet and discuss firms. I'm wondering if it might be more productive if people email. Can we email you directly the different firms and then we just compile a list? And
Absolutely. Does everybody, would you like to do that? Just start getting the names of firms with their addresses and just shoot me that information? And then we can go
sorry,
ahead.
I just wanted to ask, so with how long this RFP might take to get out, does that mean we want to look at shortening the time with that, or
Yeah.
so that it happens soon? Because if it's already February-ish that this is happening after 6 weeks, that
Right.
seems long.
It really, that's a long time for an RFP to be out there. If we can get this information out before the holidays, we could give people to the end of the month, the end of January, to get their proposals in.
I would agree with that, Sylvia.
Yeah.
I think that last week of January is more than enough time to give people.
I agree.
Yeah, I
Right.
think so too. Yeah.
So if
If
we
I
can
may
get,
add-
if we,
Oh,
go ahead.
go ahead. The other thing is in terms of finding, I haven't really done any of this yet, but I will. Other firms, wouldn't such entities as like the Illinois Library Association and the American Library Association, wouldn't they have potentially some sort of resource for looking for executive directors as well? I mean, I
Sure.
could look. I mean, I could look and see what they have or call them or something, So, I mean, it would seem to me anything with a major library association like those would have some resources or some ideas, where you could go look for this sort of thing. So, you know?
Generally, they have like classified sections. They're very similar
Mhm.
to like the IML and other organizations on the municipal
Mhm.
side, where you can post these kinds of things. They don't generally maintain a list of vendors to
Oh.
use. And part of that's a legal one. It's,
Oh.
we really can't recommend that you have to use this firm or you should use this firm. So you're unlikely to find that kind of list.
Oh.
Larry, it was a lot of classifieds,
Mhm.
as Douglas just mentioned, and there's a lot of places, job posting sites and such that come up when you're searching this stuff. So it, for me, even just to come up with, does he pronounce his name John Keister? Is it Keister? Anyway, isn't that who worked for us before? So he comes up at the very top. I had to dig a lot deeper to even get to the other options. And it seems that a lot of these job sites will post for library director positions, but I know I'm lost. Sorry, I'm rambling. It was difficult. It's a difficult search just to find these firms if you're going in blind, is my point. So, and it seems that every place you would think would be a good resource, it's more classified, as Douglas said, as opposed to helping us.
Interesting. Okay. So it's kind of a jigsaw puzzle, just trying to kind of find where to go with this. Yeah. Wow.
Sylvia, you're muted again.
Okay, Tatiana, are you okay with sitting down with me and coming up with a list of places and people to send this to?
I'm fine doing that. It's going to be difficult for me to find time in the next 10 days. Email is easier because it's back and forth, but finding it is a little bit tricky. What I'm going to do right now is send you the information I shared tonight and at least the ball rolling on those two. Yes.
Okay. Does anyone else have any time within the next couple of days to come up with just a list?
I can look into it.
Okay. All right. So between the three of us, we should be able to have a list ready by the time Douglas is finished.
Sounds good.
Sound good?
Yes.
And anybody else, if you see any firms out there that are headhunters and that they would do a search for us, don't hesitate to send the address and the name of the firm.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. And then we'll finalize the date and we'll finalize things like the budget amount, the number of staff, and those types of things. That'll all be final. Okay, so once we come up with the list and it's final, we'll just send that information out to you, just so you know that it's done, okay? Okay. Now, Susan, once we do all of that work, could you send them out for us from the library?
I'm sorry, Sylvia. I had to unmute myself. I couldn't hear exactly what you were saying.
Once we come up with a list and the places that we're going to send them, the other places, can you do that from the library?
Again, please discuss that with John.
Okay. I'm just asking, is that something that you could do?
It is, but I will let you know I am trying to take off some time in the next couple of weeks. I'm trying to figure out with what I've got going on what I can exactly do. So I'm kind of trying to figure out what my schedule is going to look like in the next 2 weeks.
Could we involve marketing?
Douglas, what are your thoughts?
I guess I don't know necessarily what the answer to that question is. From a strictly legal standpoint, you have to post this publicly somewhere. I strongly recommend that it be on the library's website, but I also would encourage you to consider places like the city, their website, some of these other organizations where you find a lot of these classified boards. When it comes to sending out an email with the RFP attached, yeah, I'm happy to work with you to help facilitate that happening, whether that's, internally through staff, whether that's through our office, whether it's through the city of Waukegan. I'm certainly happy to try to help facilitate that in any way that I can.
Okay, well, let's have that conversation, Douglas, and let's see how we can get this sent out. Okay, Susan, I'll be back in touch with you.
Yeah, maybe that's something that we should talk about either the end of this week or beginning of next week.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, any announcements, trustee comments at this point? None?
Are we having a meeting, a regular board meeting this month or not? I can't remember.
Yes,
Yes.
We are, okay.
Yes.
When is that, next week?
Yes.
Okay.
Can I make one quick comment just about Bradbury Miller Associates? They have been used by at least 2 area libraries they were put in charge of the new director at the Winnetka Northfield Library, which also made headlines with some issues. So they're familiar with that kind of situation, as well as LaGrange Library here.
Okay. Okay. Well, we'll send it out to them and see if they will respond. Okay. There were no public comments. And if everything, we're in agreement about how we're going to proceed, do we have to, Douglas, I'm just curious, do we have to take this back to our regular meeting and vote on sending the RFP out?
Nope, this is a purely administrative task that, you can just direct, whether it's me and Susan to accomplish.
Okay, all right, sounds good. Okay, so then can we get a motion to adjourn this meeting?
Motion to adjourn. Josue.
Okay, and a second?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Larry. Okay, so Larry, are
Aye.
you in favor of, okay,
Yes.
Brian,
Aye.
Rob,
Aye.
Martha,
Aye.
Tatiana,
Aye.
Josue,
Aye.
and yes for myself also. So this meeting is adjourned, and if I can get through, I will talk to everybody on Wednesday. If not, Josue will run the meeting.